Who did you boys want to be England coach?
I'll let you go, mate.
Wow, it's a difficult question though. I mean, I because of the timing element of it, it made it difficult to ever see Pep actually getting the nod. But for someone who has done it all, that's the guy you shoot for. That's the guy England should have been shooting for. And I think approaches were made or something. I've read recently. He stood out. I mean, as an Arsenal fan, it obviously benefits us as well if Pep is no longer managing that side in Manchester. But you've done everything you can basically to set yourself up for success if you manage to acquire Pep Guardiola as your head coach. I think that's just a fact. The Klopp thing I don't think that's ever going to materialise, given where the sort of rationale behind him moving away from Liverpool, him moving into an international coaching role seems unlikely. So again, would have been a nice to have, but the likelihood of that happening was pretty far down.
Oh, well,
To be
I would have
honest,
thought an international job would be more suited to someone like Klopp who wants like a bit of a break from the intensity of like week to week football,
but
I
it's
think.
it's a tough it's a tough gig though because of the expectations. It's not he wouldn't necessarily be walking into an environment where he'll have some tolerance. I think coming into the England job of how many years of not winning a trophy since '66, it's gearing up to the next competition and being like, right, we need to have some return here.
Mm.
So I, I,
But
I, yeah, I definitely see what you're saying in terms of it doesn't come with the same level of intensity day to day as coaching Liverpool. Absolutely not. But I feel like he really would be under that pressure to to succeed straight away, which I just don't know if the sort of rationale he was giving for walking away from Liverpool, it didn't sound like that energy, that motivation mix would be right. So I,
that's
I,
fair enough.
I didn't see that ever really happening. But Pep for me, Pep would be top of my list, and FA should have been doing everything they could
Yeah.
to get him.
So I believe with Klopp, so hasn't he now joined Red Bull? So it's again like head of football operations, but I think for all their football teams,
Yeah,
I believe. I don't think it's just Leipzig, but I think it's for all their football teams. So
yeah, it's for the group. Yeah,
yeah, so I don't think that would have been. Yeah, I agree. I don't think that would have been a viable option. I think clearly there was something wrong there, and he was trying to get the hell out of England. Maybe again, he's like, yeah, I need to get out of here. I need to be back in Germany. But even beyond that, I think a lot of top clubs are struggling at the moment with who's actually available at the moment. Like, how
yeah.
many top coaches are there really? I think Pep would have been the great option if he was available, but again, seems a bit unrealistic. And do you wait till the end of the season to try and get him? And is England maybe the next job for him? He might prefer a Spain or Brazil.
Well, our interim coach was doing really well. Yeah, we were playing some exciting football. Um, he could have
Was it
stayed.
sustainable though? That's the key question. It
But
really,
like for we have what 2 years until
Yeah,
the next yeah. I mean, like
yeah.
guys, let's let's throw the ball about a little bit. Let's have fun in the meantime. Like
I
we're
think
not
Yeah,
bro, he
England
came out early.
England, huh? It's what?
Well, I was going to say he came out very quickly. Well, when I say very quick, well, last week he came out saying that he knew he wasn't ready to be the coach. Again, you're not trying to hear that from the CEO of a business or the head of an operation, like someone. And again, it's true. Again, he was probably out of his depth a little bit. Like it's different from coaching the under 21s to then having to kind of manage the big boys where you're expected to win every single game and the pressure that kind of comes.
exactly.
And he's
So
probably going to just settle, have it easy, get his money, try and win with those young boys, and down the road, if the perfect opportunity presents itself, then he would make the move. But
okay, so that
yeah,
means there's been a mistake or a lack of concentration on the development of the next England manager then. Because if we saw, and maybe this isn't the best way to do it, tell Ben he doesn't need to crawl on the floor behind you. But as I was saying, because with Southgate, he was kind of bred through the system to be the next England manager, and whether people think he was successful or not, that seems to be a pathway that England chose with him. I know if you look at other sports, like I look at New Zealand rugby, they have a history of getting their coaches to come through the system, whether it's being a part of the management system in some capacity as an assistant coach and then taking on the head job. I think maybe England needs to think a bit more long term, potentially a lot regarding Tuchel and his process and his predecessor. Oh my God, I can't speak today, guys. The person who takes over from his job is going to need to have been through. I think this is well, and because I think one thing that was great about Southgate is that he got time. He was given like the excuse of time, which I'm almost certain that for a couple of reasons Tuchel's not going to get. One, because I think he's a foreign manager. Two, because he's kind of bombed out of his last couple of places, and he loves to, have a fiery attitude towards not only the media but also to the people above him as well.
Yeah. So two coaches that were considered, Potter and Eddie Howe. So again, Howe maybe not as easy to get because he's currently at Newcastle, but Potter being out of the job, he probably was in with a chance. So I guess maybe to touch on that, like, what's your opinion on both those guys? Because for me, but I would prefer Eddie Howe over Potter, but neither of those guys have won. And if the goal is to bring someone who has won, then they probably do not work. And for me, Potter is a similar personality to a Southgate. For me, like, there's a bit too much. There's not enough of a. I don't think he's got that dog in him, and I think we kind of need that. But yeah, what do you guys think on those two?
On Potter, and then to link back Jez's point around nurturing the next England manager, his roots seem to be ticking a lot of those boxes. Had foreign experience in a foreign league, then had proven success at Brighton, and then had got that big job at Chelsea. And hindsight's 2020, but it's almost a case of Chelsea wasn't the big club he should have moved to because it's such a toxic environment that they were going into. If he had maybe replaced Klopp, if the timing had been right there, if he had moved into Spurs, if he had made that gradual step up and made the right move to a quote unquote top six, big six club, then he could have had a really good position to have success in the most competitive league and set himself up to be that next England coach. Because I think his development path was ticking a lot of boxes. In the same way, Eddie Howe is sort of following that now, but is sort of hitting a bit of a plateau in the sense of Newcastle aren't developing, I think, at the rate at which the ownership probably anticipate and want.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of aligns to that argument. He hasn't won anything, probably isn't the right guy to be going for at this point in time. But with Potter, it almost felt like he was earmarked. He was making the right moves, but then Chelsea just wasn't the right one in the end. A different top six club, and I think he had every chance.
The thing is, I was just going to add to that mate, there isn't a formula to appointing a winning England head coach because we've had the Italian manager who's won everything outside of in the Italian league and in Spain. We've had those people with years of experience, right? And it just hasn't worked out. So
do you think the Capello example is a good one, considering the language barrier? Just for example, just as a key, how well do you think he could get across the ideas that he wanted to?
Yeah, no, in his early stages, probably that was definitely a struggle. But I know he picked up English relatively well come to the latter stages of his time in the England job. But I understand that, and I think Tuchel, obviously being an English speaker, is going to benefit from that a lot.
Yeah, he can hit the ground.
But let's look at Sven, right? He had won in the club game prior to joining England, and I mean, we had some pretty good tournaments, but again, quarterfinals, semi-finals, not hitting the great heights. So for me, it's just not an exact science. So just on the Eddie Howe situation, he would have been my first choice. Big fan of Eddie Howe. I think the situation that's happening at Newcastle is a really interesting one because I think this isn't like when the Saudi ownership came into Man City years ago, right, where there was a really clear big four, or big three, and then all they had to do was break into that. Now there's
Yeah.
like 6, 7, 8 really good teams in the league, and the battle to get great talent is much harder nowadays as well because like throwing money at the issue isn't enough to just get into the top four consistently nowadays, right? It might work for 1 year, but after that, you're going to have the best infrastructure around it, like a Man City have now put in place to make sure they're consistently winning.
But then, do you not, to play devil's advocate, do you not think that almost works against Eddie Howe, because then you're sort of looking for a differentiation, and that's the coaching ability to then cut through in a world where spend is, for those guys almost put to one side because they can go out and buy who they want, and they've acquired great talent. I don't think anyone can deny that, but we're not seeing that step up. We're not seeing them push through and actually challenge for the league.
But the
And
thing
you
is,
go, I'd like to see my manager as being the catalyst for that, which
Sure.
I don't think he's done.
I understand the argument, but if you quite simply compare his squad to every other team that's above him, right? And then look at the managers who are in place above him. Prior to that, we had Pep, we had Klopp, we had Arteta with an Arsenal squad that's better than his Newcastle squad. You have United, which I still think man for man has a better squad than them. Now, I think Eddie, when he was at Southampton, he showed that he can coach the hell out of a team, right? I guess what we're saying is when the quality gets a bit higher, can you?
Yeah, the marginal gains are
Exactly.
tighter.
But I think the marginal gains are just a bit more in terms of the other clubs and the infrastructure and the personnel that they have around. And we also got to remember that Newcastle, as an entire organization, as you know, to win a league, it's more than just the coach and the players. You have to have like the entire organization running as a well-oiled machine. And I just don't think they're there just yet.
And to be fair, last season they did have injuries. I'm pretty certain keeper got injured at some point for a long period of time.
They had a lot of injuries last year.
Centre back got injured as well. Isak a few times during the run-in. So yeah, I think that's played a role in them not having the success last season. But I think when you look at Aston Villa getting into the top four, and then Newcastle haven't, and it looks like Newcastle probably won't get into the top four again this year. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if Eddie Howe is gone at the end of the season, because initially he wasn't the man they were looking at. I know they wanted to go for a bigger profile. So it makes you wonder, people like Zidane. Like Zidane hasn't coached for 3-4 years. I wonder what he's waiting for. Again, not for Newcastle, but I just
yeah, exactly.
That is a really good shout.
Someone like him hasn't coached again off the back of Madrid. Is he waiting for the French job, or is he waiting for a much higher profile? Is he waiting for like a Man City, for example? So, yeah, we'll see what happens with Eddie Howe. I think with the way things are playing out, I won't be surprised if he's gone by then. Yeah.
I think to that point though, we're speaking around these guys having compromises. These guys aren't perfect, and so I think that's why I'd still maintain that Pep would be my number one choice, because he's as close to perfection as you're going to get. You've done everything you can. Yeah. You've done your due diligence. He's a proven winner. He's going to be your best shot at success. Knows the English game. Will be coaching players he coaches week in, week out. It feels like that would be my preference to go for. And then everything else is going to have some sort of compromise. And I do think Eddie Howe is compromised, like as we've just discussed. And unfortunately, I think Graham Potter as well is now definitely compromised because of that really difficult spell at Chelsea. I just think that's a tough period to go through. And, his route back into top level coaching is TBC, really. But yeah, the Zidane point is really interesting as well. You kind of forget about. I've definitely forgotten about him as a coach, because he has been out of the game for that long. The French piece is interesting. I think there was chatter building up to the previous competition around Deschamps' approach, especially with Saliba and things like this. And is he kind of still the right guy for the job? So that, I think that that could be a natural move, but we'll have to wait and see.
I'm a different type of rock star. I got class and I got Henny overflowing up my shot glass. And yeah, I know I'm not a keeper, but can you be my mama seater by the time I'm done with